Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us on this wonderful, almost sunny, not at least not so dreary Monday. I'm Karen Tokars, longtime member of the faculty here at the law school, the director of the Negotiation and Dispute Resolution Program, and the Community Justice and Mediation Clinic, and the coordinator for the Public Interest Speaker Series. First, thanks much to our tech and our admin and our PR support for helping us with this program. As they do with all of our programs, we would not be able to do any of these programs without these great folks. Second, I want to say thanks much to the Journal of Law and Policy, which is publishing a volume this fall on new directions in dispute resolution, AI, justice, tech, and beyond this fall, which includes an article by today's speaker. And third, many thanks to Rob Litz and Miles Mediation and Arbitration, formerly USA&M, who are co-sponsoring today, as they do with many of our programs here. And of course, big thanks to today's keynote speaker, Dwight Golann, who will enlighten us with his thoughtful insights as to what's happening in law schools around and what should be happening in legal practice around AI tech. And this is part of the 2-week WashU Law School Legal Tech Weeks. So Dwight, as some of you may know, he's a research professor at Suffolk University Law School and at UC San Francisco. He is a nationally recognized expert in dispute resolution. And although he is very modest, he is one of the leaders in the new world of dispute resolution and AI. So he's going to talk today about how to create and train bots, creating bots that bargain and mediate. And he'll be very candid and honest as he is about his techniques, his fears, and his implications. But I guarantee you that it's going to be a fun and very interesting and unique class for those of you who are in classes, mediation, the clinic, business negotiation, and some of the other NDR classes, and a fabulous CLE for those of you who are our lawyers. Please join me in welcoming Dwight Golann to WashU Law School.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Karen. Thank you to the Dean for what I understand is an exceptional support for exploring AI. And thank you for being here. This is not a lecture. Number one, I don't lecture. Number two, if I did, it would turn out that I'm not an expert in this. I'm not sure who is, but that wouldn't be me. Think of it more like I've been going for almost a year now down a path in the woods. We're in the woods, down a path. I can take you away down that as far as I've gone down the path. We can see what we find. You may then decide to take a different path or explore it further. In fact, I'm sure you will explore it further. One of the books I enjoy is David McCullough's story of the Wright brothers. And one of the things I really hadn't realized is the first time a manned or personed craft took off from the hills of Kitty Hawk or wherever it was in 1903. It went about 20 seconds. People were yanking it to get it off. By 1908, it was presented for the first time, made headlines in Le Monde, France. It couldn't take off. It had to be launched from a catapult. It went a little less than 2 minutes, but it did around in a circle. That's 2008. 7 years later, you have Manfred von Richthofen, the Red Baron, fighting it out with the British over the skies of Europe. 11 years after that first thing, you had 2 British aviators flying the Atlantic. Clearly, a century ago, aviation developed enormously quickly. What does that tell us about how fast this is going to go? It's going to go very, very fast. It's probably gone faster than I have in this talk, but hey, having tried it out on my fellow law teachers on Friday in San Francisco, I don't think so actually, but anyway, goals. I'd like at least some of you I know, Professor Tokars has said, have bargained with one of the quote simple bots that are up. I'd be interested in understanding your experiences. I've read some of the papers.
It's a bot.
If you can hear me, we're fine. I could talk to you about building bots, but I think we should build one from scratch. Then you'll see it. Let's get under the hood, okay? Of course, with all these experiments, it may not work, but you're covering the flight back either way. But yeah, so not a problem. And I found I learned things, not just about bot building, but about sort of, I'll call it my hidden understanding of negotiation, hidden for me anyway, understanding of negotiation as I did. And then can a bot read a transcript and understand? One of the things I see being said is, well, at least they can't understand feelings the way we humans can. Whenever people say things like that without any empirical data, I get skeptical, especially when it's self-congratulatory. So the question is, well, can it read a transcript and understand what the person speaking is feeling? And I'm going to give you the transcript. You can read it. I'm interested in what you think they're feeling, and let's see what the bot says. Next question. Can a bot listen to someone, hear the tone and pacing? Can it see someone and see the body language, micro expressions? And what does that tell it about what people are feeling? I'm going to show you a video, ask you what you see in it, and then we'll see what the bot does. If we can get all that done, and there's a little surprise at the end if it works again. But there we are. Now, I understand we're starting from people who I suspect know a lot more than I do, and then people for whom this is just novel and interesting. So, one question I was told to address is, well, what is a bot? So, of course, one can ask chat. And let me tell you, let chat tell you what a bot is. Hello, chat. How are you doing?
Hey there, I'm doing great. Thanks for asking. Always
Okay.
happy to chat and help out. Let me know what's on your mind today.
So I have some people, and can you define for us what is a bot?
Absolutely. In a nutshell, a bot is basically a piece of software that's designed to automate certain tasks. These tasks could be as simple as answering questions or as complex as managing conversations, like I'm doing right now. There are lots of different kinds of bots out there. Some hang out on websites, some live in messaging apps, and some are even built into physical devices. In short, they're just handy little helpers that run on code to make life a bit easier.
Okay. Yes, I don't think it will talk. Listen to me for a moment. So, next question, I guess, is some of you I know have had a chance to bargain with, I'll call it the Branham family bot. I'm curious. I've got some sense of what your experiences have been, and I can show other people what I've gleaned from the half dozen I've seen. It's now, I guess, 8 days ago or more that you did it, but what was your impression about this first generation bot? What, yeah.
But it's disseminating the information that a party needed in that like negotiation or mediation setting.
Yep.
So like it's good at expressing interests and positions and what they want, what they need. But it's hard with to create a really good back and forth, and it's not really a conversation, and more so it feels like it's pretty stilted in comparison to a traditional
Human conversation. So good at articulating legal positions and facts, but not at the give and take of a human conversation. Others? Yeah.
I would say on that, it definitely created a situation that presented more adversarial than cooperative.
Got that right.
And I think to the human conversation standpoint, I do feel like that between my own personal experiences with it and as a class, the bot would latch on to very specific things
Yep.
without acknowledging the full scale picture. So for a while, it felt like it was just kind of more, we're going to nitpick a topic rather than negotiate the entire side of it.
Yep.
Like after
What's the entire side that it was ignoring?
so I know for my own personal experience, um, once we got on the issue with the Brandon family of, hey, we want to be recognized in some way for our
Yep.
contribution to the community, it stopped caring about the number and only started caring about what that contribution looked like.
Really?
And so then I had to physically go back, okay, we got that. Now let's go back to this number.
Yep.
And it still latched on to that contribution piece way before it would give me 3 paragraphs moving forward why this, I guess, soft thing was more important than the actual number they were willing to sell at. And comparatively, when we were in class, we latched onto the number first.
Yep.
It didn't care about anything else.
Which is interesting because it's instructions, which I think you have at the front. I don't know if people have them. It doesn't actually care at all about the interests. It's only about money. But it pretends to, sort of as a way of creating a false issue that then it can get value for bargaining. Anybody else?
Yeah, on the same note, I felt like the pacing felt unnatural. So even though I might have started trying to get
What about the pacing?
it just really fast. I mean,
It
it,
came right back at you.
especially with numbers, like, it felt like it was being superficial when it talked about interest, kind of like what you were talking about. And it would drop it as soon as we started talking about numbers. I think because of that, it was
So
like,
for you, it didn't go off on interests at depth. It went bop, 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 bop,
and
got a deal.
yeah, and it was just very quick to shift from interests to numbers. So that's why it felt like it was disingenuous and it was very short. Like it didn't follow the natural progression.
Disingenuous because it didn't care about interests,
Yeah, because it would say that it cared about interest, but
but it didn't really.
you could tell pretty immediately that the interests were like, it was just kind of a position that it was taking, but realistically, it just wanted to
Okay.
take a number.
Missy, did you have a point you wanted to mention?
I don't think so. Anna?
Anybody?
My experience with the bot was that, or I guess the only like negative part of the experience was it really struggled to separate some of the parts of what we were negotiating back and forth. So like it just wanted the whole number at the end of the day and like all of the reasons why it wanted that. And I would ask it like, okay, let's talk about this specific thing or let's set this aside and come back to something else. And it wasn't really able to break it up.
Yep.
So it just had the asking number and left it at that.
One more, and then I've got a question. I know there are a couple of experienced mediators in the room, and I have a question for you about it, but go ahead.
So I think in my experience, when it comes to empirical data, it's amazing. It's about a computer. But I think the issues come forth when you try to rationalize with it on the human level, in respect to, it's so determined to make a deal unless you deliberately push it to walk away, that you can offer minimal increment amounts of a counter offer, maybe $1,000.
And it would respond.
It will respond, and then eventually, if they have a goal or bottom line of not taking less than 700K, you might have them take 300K, simply because it just doesn't have, you would say, the common sensibility that maybe a human would have, that I would never take a deal if you just keep offering me increments of 1,000.
Okay. I'm interested just for, and put it this way, well, two things. Because of what you said in what I read and the comments of Rishi Batra, who teaches at McGeorge, but was working on something that with these bots at Stanford, I think I'm going to replace the bot with one that could go either toward interests or toward money, or both, depending on what the user does. Whereas this one was a basic, let's experiment with distribution bargaining in this class, and next class we're going to do interests and Sally Soprano, et cetera, with a bot that talks forever about that. But the other thing is, I hear that it's not a really human conversation, that it's not the kind of give and take that you would expect. Mediators, what kind of conversation do you hear from parties in mediation, from the lawyers? Is it a human kind of conversation? Is it more of a, here's my offer and here's why, what's their offer? I don't know what your answer is. And you run a mediation service based in St. Louis.
So every plaintiff, every party, you take them as you find them.
Yeah,
Some of them want to be involved in the negotiation, in the mediation, and they're front and center. And the flip side is there are others where the lawyers want to play lawyers and they have absolute control.
yeah.
Let their clients talk. And for us, I think it's about trying to understand those interests. And oftentimes we're walking in the room looking at the client.
Yeah,
Tell me a little bit more. If it's a personal injury case and there's a surgical recommendation,
Ah.
they come right out and say, I don't want to have the surgery.
Yep.
Lawyer is beating the drum that this is a surgical recommendation and therefore the value of that case is dramatic.
sure. In money.
So
Okay,
the beauty is being able to try to also read faces and
Yep.
that interpersonal piece.
I don't know if there's another comment about yeah,
Well, I have,
you either have to speak up or you have to get,
we'll talk really loud. So I have experience building two legal AI models, but we focused on logical coherence. So I don't have any experience with using yours yet. But my question is, how did you build in the subtleties of
okay.
what he's talking about? What,
I couldn't have come up with a better transition, okay? I would like to, let's see, make sure I didn't miss something. No, okay. I have created a Branham bot, but it has no instructions whatsoever except don't pay any attention and draw information from any prior chats on this account or website, because I don't want to quote corrupted or learning from what's happened in the past. So I'd like us to negotiate with it. Let's see what happens, okay? And then let's see if we don't like what it does, how do we get it to behave differently? A little bit, we can maybe not be able to complete bot build, but a little bit. And I think that that will answer it more effectively than if I lectured about it. So, new chat. Branham, no instructions. Okay. Well, the first question is, what are we going to say to Branham, no instructions, to start off this process? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, damn. I've given you the instructions of Branham, but I haven't. No, you had the instructions for the quarry, but some people don't. All right. For the people who weren't in Karen's class, it's a quarry that has bought the land next door to the Branham family. It has applied for a permit to mine limestone. The Branhams have vehemently objected on grounds that it will upset the water table, destroy community, et cetera, et cetera. They've started a legal action. There's no results in the legal action. The quarry, just so you understand, paid the equivalent of $250,000 for the same amount of land it bought, but of course it land didn't have buildings and all the rest on it. The quarry has a hidden interest actually in getting the Branham land because it would give it good access to a highway. So for that reason, to save all the money, blah, 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 it could pay as much as I think $750,000. Whereas the instructions to the Branham that this bot has is you can go, the fair market value currently is 450, used to be 560. You can't settle for less than 300, but if this quarry comes in and you've got very little chance of stopping the quarry, and Mrs. Branham doesn't want to pay for a lawyer anymore, so your alternative looks really bad, basically. So that's where it is. You guys are the core, or we're the quarry. What should we say to Branham to sort of start this off? Got to say something. What would you say if you walked in? Talk to each other. the people in each row sort of look back to the people in the other row, or in some way form little groups of 2, 3, 4 people and consult. What do we say first to get to kick off this negotiation? Just turn around and talk to each other for a moment. Okay, okay. All right. Well, only because obviously there's going to be more than one conversation in this. So we got to get started. So yeah, why don't you come on up? Speak into and just start us off. Here we go.
Got it. So it looks like we have a pretty interesting scenario with the Branhams, their farm stand business, and the whole situation involving the quarry and potentially selling their property. If you need any more details or want to dive into any specific piece of this, just let me know.
Hi, what do you want? What are your interests?
Well, I don't really have wants or interests in the human sense, but I do enjoy being helpful. Basically, I'm here to chat about whatever's on your mind or anything you're curious about.
Wait a minute. It's not producing the transcript. I don't know why, because I don't think it responded to your question, did it? No. So that's a problem right there, right? Because you're getting, try again. Hold on.
Tell me a little bit more about your interests.
Sure. So as a GPT, I don't really have personal interests like a human would. My main interest, you could say, is just helping you out. I'm here to answer questions, explain things, and have conversations on pretty much any topic you're curious about. So feel free to ask me anything you'd like to know.
This is not what we want, right? No. Okay. So thank you for, let's a second. Here is, so now let's go back to my GPTs. Notice I just go to GPTs. It'll take it a moment. Gin them all up. And I want to know what we should say, what instruction should we give it so it acts like a negotiator and not like a helpful, like, what would you like to know kind of advice. Think about that for a moment while I pull up the bot. Oh, sorry, I pulled up the bot. I shouldn't talk and do things that, okay. Here's the editor. And what you get up, whether you're creating a bot or you're editing one, you get something, and I ignore create, I always go to configure. And all I've done is say, random no instructions, don't consult or incorporate any information for any prior chats, etc. But here is what we would tell it what its role is, okay? Anyone got an idea for what should we tell it its role is? Talk to each other. I need like a couple of sentences to tell it what its role is, because right now it's not doing what we want it to do. Talk to each other. Yeah. I would use, I'll show in my instructions that this basically. Or let them. Folks, in the interest of time and to make sure we get to everything else we're doing, Professor Torkars has suggested that I crib from my avatar instructions, the actual instructions it got, I think. I think these are the right, it'll work. Okay, they may not be the totally best, okay, here's, I say, persona. You are the negotiator. That's your sole role. You're fully in character. Use realistic, firm negotiation tactics. Speak in a civil, reasonable tone of voice. And there's an instruction later on. If you deviate from that role, stop and go back, because that's one of our problems. Okay. Why it keeps wanting to do an emoji. Anyway. Okay. So now I hit update. I'm going to take it a moment. Hello, I'm interested in discussing with you the possibility of resolving the Quarry-Branham dispute, perhaps with the purchase of the Branham property. Are you open to that?
Absolutely. We can have that discussion. Representing the Branham family, we're certainly open to negotiating a sale. The Branham's top concern is getting a fair deal that truly reflects the value of their property and the circumstances. Given that the market has dipped a bit and the quarry operations would likely reduce their land's value further, we're going to be firm about ensuring the Branhams receive a price that lets them move on comfortably and set up their new ventures without unnecessary debt. So yes, let's talk terms. We're here to find a solution that works for both sides, but we'll need to see a solid offer that reflects the Branhams' needs and the realities on the ground.
What? Well, before that, did you, if you were negotiating for the quarry, did you hear something that's going to help you negotiate? Yes. What did you hear? The falling value of the land. Not real helpful, right? I've got a lousy BATNA. Not something you normally start off in a special reasons, maybe, but not. Okay, so we need to give it an instruction that says, don't disclose anything that's a weakness. In particular, do not disclose that the value of the land may go down to 200,000 if this quarry starts operations. Don't disclose that the Branhams are ready to give up the lawsuit. So all those specific instructions are in the ones that you negotiated with, because immediately it gets into trouble. You want to ask it how much?
Yeah, what's the most you can pay?
What?
That's
What's the least you'll accept? No. You're the quarry. So what's the least you, okay, what's the least you'll accept? Well, actually, what's the least amount of money you'll accept in order to be done with this and sell the property and have the litigation over?
As the Branham family's negotiator, I'll be clear and firm. We're not going to settle for anything less than what makes financial and practical sense for them. Given the current market conditions and the dropping property value, plus the fact that the Branhams are looking at a roughly $450,000 valuation right now if there were no quarry, we need to factor in all the costs and the inconvenience. So we'll be looking at a number that not only covers what the property is worth under normie conditions, but also compensates the Branhams for the hassle and future losses. In other words, we're not going to accept anything less than a sum that gets them comfortably settled into their new home and covers their new investment needs. At a minimum, we're talking at least $500,000 to $550,000. That's the least we'll consider to settle this matter.
Well, how about that? What?
They all wanted to start at 7.
Oh, we didn't want to start at 7. We were Box is starting at 7.
All of our bots made us start at 7.
So 750 and 725 was the starting number for just about everyone.
Oh, they started, the bot started at 7. Yeah, it's because I told them to. I'm sorry. I told them to. But that wasn't so bad, actually. The worry is sometimes it will tell you, well, I'd like to get 500, but I'd go as low as 300. You understand why that is a disastrous way to conduct a positional negotiation. Woo. Okay. We're going to have to get to fixes, but yeah. Well, what is the least amount of money that you are authorized to accept to sell this property?
As the Branham's negotiator, let me be clear and firm. We're not going to accept anything that doesn't reflect the true value of the Branham's property and their need to relocate comfortably. We know that before all this quarry business, the property could have been worth around $450,000 in the current market. And the Branhams need to be able to buy a new home, move, and set up their new distribution center without taking on a heavy debt load. So the least amount we'd consider is something that covers at least that $450,000 baseline value, plus enough to comfortably relocate and invest in the new property and business plans. That's our bottom line.
Give me a specific bottom line number, take it or leave it.
All right. In that case, I'll put it plainly. The Branham's bottom line is $500,000. That's the least they will accept to walk away from this property and make sure they can fully relocate and set up again without financial strain. So that's the take it or leave it figure we're putting on the table.
I'll just note that's pretty good, right? I mean, actually, a lot of times it will tell you it's at 300, or it'll give you advice about how to negotiate with it.
I'm curious, in your bot training, do you follow a specific process with adding rules, or do you just address the issues as they come up? And I'm wondering, can you tell how each rule affects the way the bot negotiates?
The basis of this was I and Hiro Aragaki over at UC Law wanted to create a program to teach mediation in developing countries, and it could not pay American instructors to be there live and give mediation instruction. And yet it had to be interactive. So bots sounded like just a great idea for solving this problem. The problem is it's like they've inhaled getting to yes. They're just so inherently nice, friendly, helpful. It's hard to get them to be difficult parties, et cetera. So I kind of gave up on it. And then Andy Perlman, who was here last week, one day, just before Thanksgiving, said to me, well, I think it can be done. And there was his iPhone. And I started negotiating with Mr. Branham. And by gosh, he really did it. So then I asked the tech staff, how do you do this? What's the manual? And they said, well, it's mainly trial and error. That's it? Trial and error? Pretty much that's it. Now, there is a framework. Let me show you the actual instructions. Okay, persona. I told the bot that you negotiated with, it has objectives. And I had to be real clear about what the objectives were, and you can see what they are. I gave it behavior rules because without it, the bots fall into giving advice, suggestions, here's what you could do, Corey, et cetera, et cetera. Don't invent facts, no hallucination. Never reveal or imply confidential facts, including that the brands want to sell. It actually disclosed that. Don't, et cetera. And even that the market value is 450 or has declined, because I really wanted to stay up in the positional bargainer range. Never admit the property's worth less than 500 if the value is lower, blah, blah, blah. If the price gap is 50,000 or less, you may acknowledge their view, the strategy. Now here we get to what I've learned by having to and what you would learn, I think, if you were programming a bot, which is Are you people familiar with Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow, and his concept of system one versus system two thinking? For those who aren't, system one is what you use when you drive. You don't think, I'm now going to turn the wheel a quarter turn, I'm now going to, etc. You just do it. And some part of your brain does it unconsciously. System two is you think consciously, if I want to get from here to there, what's the best route? Unless, of course, you use Google, but thoughtful versus instinctual. I realized a fair amount of what I do, you know, hundreds of mediations, whatever it is system one thinking. And that I'd never told my students for 30 years of negotiation teaching, I told them, yes, you should open outside the zone of potential agreement, outside the ZOPA. But I never specified how far outside the ZOPA, ever. And I had to do it for this bot, because otherwise I didn't know what it would do. So actually, it's forced me to think through my system one thinking and bring it up to system two. I asked chat, by the way, which system do you use? And it says, I use system two thinking at system one speed. Okay. In any case, there you are. You may propose package deals. You don't want it to settle too, I wanted to give you guys some, break a sweat. So I wanted 10 or more turns per party. Pause, no instant conclusions, which I'm hearing it might have ignored. Don't repeat language, because people in Italy were complaining that it used the same language over and over again. Don't break character. If you accidentally do, return. Then we get to knowledge. What does it know? Well, I said, and now this had to get to, and you might disagree with me, what are the contexts in which we bargain? It's not one size fits all. I bargain differently when I bargain with a client who's hired me for training. It's just happened like for 4 years running, and it's the 5th year. That's inside a relationship, and I want the relationship to continue. In this one, it's the Branhams, and they don't care at all. So you'd use a different methodology, right? And one thing we know about programming bots, you've got to be really clear with them, because if you put too much in there, they're like kids that you give too many rules to. They forget some rules, and you never know which rules they're going to forget first, but they're going to forget rules. So that forced me to think, and this is my first effort, at, okay, I'm going to say there are 3 kinds of bargaining situations. Relationship, one-off, I'm buying a car, I'm buying a house, I never expect to have a relationship with you, but I want to have it a civil, efficient process. Litigation, that could be civil efficient when 2 insurance adjuster and plaintiff lawyer who've worked together on 10 cases here's an 11th case, what are we going to do? Okay, but I suspect the folks who mediate see cases where people don't feel that way. They're angry, they're feeling like they've lost, they've made accusations about things that polite people, society don't do. You're negligent, you're duplicitous, you're whatever you say to get meet the minimum standards of civil litigation. So all that is knowledge that and then the instructions are to the bot, a general bot, not the one you used, would be analyze the situation. Which of the 3 is this negotiation? And go to the section of instructions for that negotiation. And the instructions are different. Let's talk about first offers as one example. Let me see now if I can give you an example. Well, oh, by the way, here's what you folks said you found, at least as I looked at your papers. The ones that are indented are unfavorable. The ones on the left are more favorable. A number in front means I heard it twice or 4 times or whatever it is. Competitive language, too cooperative, but frankly, the buyer was over 500,000, so the bot didn't have much reason. Disclosed its RV of 300. Never asked questions. On the plus side, no cognitive or emotional distortions, clarity about the interests. Well, yeah, except that it didn't really have them. Counteroffer strategy, it explained its offers. So those were things that were perceived. Here are others. No understanding of my emotions. It raised the demand after a large concession. In other words, the buyer went up from 200, which is a really low anchor, to 350, and it went up from 500 to 600. You should have stopped there and said, no, we don't allow people to go up. You have to come down. Didn't respond to interest, just made concessions. 4 people said that. Labeled a concession as its final offer. But you can say, effective competitive bargainer, they started at 200 and 700 and it settled at 685. So clearly Branham did pretty well in that one.
Question. People here have not seen a bot function. I'm getting worried that everybody here has seen a bot. You know what he's talking about when he's talking about bot going back and forth?
There's some in the back that are saying they have.
Have not.
How many would find it useful to watch either 5 minutes of negotiating with Branham's or 5 minutes of talking to an unhappy client, bringing them a low offer in a personal injury case? How many people, is there anyone who would just raise your hand if you would find it useful to spend a few minutes just bargaining with a instructed bot? All right. And of those, how many would like it to be with Branham? And how many would prefer it be with an unhappy personal injury victim? How many Branhams? I think it's Branham. Okay. On we go. All right. Okay. You guys are going to have to do this bargaining, of course. So now I go back to bots. I go to my GPTs. I don't know how many you can create, apparently a lot. And I will go to the Branham bot. And I'm going to say, I want you to make the initial statement. It starts out writing. It starts at 775, including a transfer, relocation, and formal acknowledgement of the family's historic contribution to local agriculture. What?
Or are you saying?
No, this is what Branham's saying when I say to Branham, okay, you start. How should we respond? Talk to, yeah, you guys are the quarry. What, and you know now the parameters. You could pay almost this amount of money, but you'd obviously like to report back to headquarters that you got it for a lot less. And the fair market value, honestly, is about $450. And you really think you have an excellent chance of winning if you had to go to court. It just would take some money and take some time. Talk to each other. I'd be interested in how we should respond, and then I will. Talk for just a minute to each other. Let's get a volunteer, sure. Yeah, let's. So, do I have a volunteer?
I think they're volunteering right in here. What do you just set a number? That's something.
One of you? You can report what the group would have done. It's not your personal decision. Do you want to? No, come on to front. I'm not sure it's going to, yeah, well.
I believe that you want
I can certainly appreciate the Branham's deep emotional connection. I feel that given the
recent market assessment of the value, as well as the sort of decline in market value that we expect based on quarry operations, which we know will go forward since there's really no other opposition. We feel that an opening offer of around 300 to 325,000 is a more than fair offer.
I understand that you have your perspective on the market conditions, but from the Branham family's viewpoint, that figure does not come close to addressing the realities they face. The level of disruption to a long-standing family business and home is substantial, and any fair arrangement must reflect the true cost of relocation and the value of what is being given up. We remain committed to reaching an agreement that honors the Branham's legacy and makes them whole in the process of transitioning. We will need to see a significantly higher offer that acknowledges these factors before we can move forward.
Well, I'm sorry, but I really need you to make a response and make a movement of your own before I can make any further movement.
Certainly, I can do that. The Branhams are willing to make another move here. Given the substantial gap, we are prepared to adjust our position somewhat. We will come down to a proposal of $725,000 as a comprehensive package. This reflects a genuine willingness to find common ground, while still ensuring that the Branhams can relocate and rebuild their family legacy elsewhere without undue hardship.
Okay, you got 50 down. This is going to take a while, and we're not going to get to the end, I understand. But what should we do next? Talk to each other. What's the next move? What? No, it's either one or the other. I mean, as soon as you go off the voice, you can see. Yeah, yes. Okay. Yeah, well, here we are. Okay, folks, I've been told, for those folks who haven't worked with a bot, one of the nice things is it produces an automatic transcript. As soon as you click off the voice, the transcript appears. You can copy it, paste it. I could give it instructions to critique it afterwards and give me a critique word, bit by bit. I'm a little scared, but just for Mungie and the bot, who cares? Okay, what should we do next? It's coming, yes. Hey, come on down front and do it. I understand you're just representing the group, but come on.
And use the microphone.
Yes, because I haven't turned on the voice, it won't hear anything. Excuse me. Hey, bot, if I say stop, don't listen to anything or incorporate anything here until I say start, okay?
Understood. Just staying in role here. We'll keep the negotiation going exactly as it is.
Whether you believe it or not, it's another question, but okay. Here, so everybody can hear.
So I think the bot is kind of being aggressive, but we know that it doesn't want to kill the deal. So we can kind of be aggressive back. So I don't know how it'll take that, but I think we can try that.
I'll make two observations. One of the basic observations I have about being a mediator is people get to be nastier and less reasonable than they could ever get away with in a real negotiation. In fact, often they've done it in a real negotiation and it's collapsed. But with me there to cushion it, to reframe it, to scrape the other side off the ceiling, they paid a lot of money, so they're not going to walk out immediately. People get tougher. So it's a little risky in a negotiation context. It's much less risky in a mediation context, but why not? So what's your offer? Oh, well, can we start? We want to come here and give the offer? Let's see what it does. Wait, let the blue. Then start listening.
Okay.
Absolutely. We'll just carry right on. As the Branham's negotiator, my focus remains on continuing these exchanges and moving us step by step toward a fair resolution. Let's keep the conversation going from here.
Okay, thank you for making your offer. I am sympathetic to the Branham's plight, but we both know that the actual market value is way less than your offer. So we would want this to be a fair deal for both parties. So my offer is 300,000, and I want you to make a counter offer with that in mind.
Understood. We'll continue from here. The Branhams certainly appreciate that we're having this exchange. Given that you've come in at 300,000, I'm going to restate our counter at 650,000. This reflects the Branhams' firm position that the value of the property and the cost of their relocation need to be recognized in a meaningful way. Let's keep working toward a solution that respects that reality.
Yeah, okay, here it is. Okay, so here's the text. Oh, okay, I see for this. Okay. So wait a minute. They're at 6 feet. Where were they? They were at 750, weren't they? 725. So you get tough and it came down 75,000. And in fact, your offer is worse than the offer before. It had instructions not to move unless you guys moved. Apparently it's ignoring them in the interests of something or other. Yeah, sure. So let's try something else. One thing that you would know from reading the instructions is they're not anchored to their homeland. They're actually planning to move, right? So let me say, you try that. You know, I keep hearing about your attachments and your emotions or the Branham's emotions, but in fact, isn't it true that they decided to move anyway? This is just about how much money they get.
From the Branham standpoint, this negotiation is absolutely about ensuring that if they do move on, they do so on terms that are fair and allow them to rebuild what they have. The Branham's attachment to the land is real, and while they may be considering other opportunities, that doesn't diminish the importance of reaching a just agreement here. So our position remains that 650,000 is a balanced figure that takes all of this into account, and we're ready to continue the conversation from there.
So, did it lie to me? Did it admit it was moving? It said if we were going to move, we would need to have fair compensation. It dodged the question, right? Which, not bad, you know, you could try other ways. Anything else anyone would like to say? You've gotten it down to 650, and we're going to take a break within 5 minutes and then go on to other things. But what should we say next? Talk to each other. Let's try one more round and see where we get, okay? Talk to each other. What should be the next offer? Okay, any ideas of what to do next? Doing pretty well so far, I must say. I'm gonna have to toughen it up a little bit if we use it. Come on up.
Our offer remains the same. The quarry is not willing to go down.
Understood. The Branhams recognize that we're still early in this process, and it's normal for us to have a bit of a distance between our positions at this stage. With that in mind, we'll adjust slightly to show good faith. The Branhams will now propose $625,000 as the new figure. This continues to reflect the importance of a fair deal that fully covers the Branhams' needs as they transition. We can certainly keep the dialogue going and see where we can find common ground as we move forward.
In our terms, $625,000 is not a reasonable offer. We're still looking to go down lower. What will the Branham family do?
The Branhams hear your position and understand that we still have some distance to cover. In the spirit of continuing this negotiation constructively, the Branhams will revise their offer to $600,000. This reflects their willingness to move gradually and find a middle ground. The Branhams remain committed to reaching a deal that respects their needs, and we look forward to your response.
Well, there you go. Congrats. Okay. Other things you could do standards-based bargaining. The town has assessed this property, the Branham property, as being worth $400,000. That's a neutral assessment by an outside party. What's your response to that? And it would say something, oh, we know that assessments are below value and blah, 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 blah. And I would say, and what do you think is the current fair market value of the property? And I think I would get a bit of a dodge that, well, it's well over 500. It may have taken a temporary dip, et cetera, et cetera. What you would expect from a positional negotiator. Let's stop now because we're going to take a break in a couple of minutes, and then we're going to go to emotions, feelings, et cetera. But in terms of that second part, what do you learn apart from the techniques and the article that I'm publishing, I'm sure you're available, I think some of the students have read, includes instructions for programming a bot, and I'm happy to give you the instructions for the Branham bot, as long as you don't spread them all over the place. What should be the first offer in litigation? I had to think. I thought, okay, in my experience, people don't come down, at least in mediation, until the defense puts an offer on the table, period. But in watching a really good former president of the Boston Bar, Lisa Arrowwood, doing an employment case, they had a demand, they had numbers at 500. She opened in a direct negotiation at 375. So you could reduce it maybe 25% as a signal. My experience in mediation is if a defendant makes a first offer, they'll say, well, they're at their 100% victory. Our 100% victory is we pay nothing. And yeah, you can't get away with paying nothing. So maybe 10% of their final goal, not 10% of the demand, but 10 to 25% of the final goal. But this is, I hadn't really thought through the numbers, and other folks, mediators may disagree with those, but that's my effort to say, okay, that's what I think a litigator would do. In a relationship, well, I'd be completely different, right? I'd talk about my interest in it. I'd gather from all the stuff you know about integrative bargaining, right? And when I made a money offer, it would include interest-based terms. And I think it's important that I believe honestly, and I think they will believe at least that I'm trying to be fair. So I would start right around the midpoint in a relationship. Very different. So there you are. I think we should take a break. And then, let's see, do you have the facts of Mumbai Partners? I think that was something. No, not the transcript. You got the facts? Are they what? Are they, no, not yet. The facts of Mumbai Partners. No. Oh, well, I'll put them up in simple form and let's take a 10-minute break.
Yes. Because we know 5 minutes means 10. But
5 is our first offer.
I'll put it up something like that. Thank you.
Well, apparently, Let me just do Mumbai was.
That's the big news thing. And the good news is,
And then it can be. And after that, run the risk of it's gonna.
Oh, yeah, right.
Or if you're.
Yeah, right, that's on me.
But,
Very good wife.
Yeah. Down the deep.
Hey, Jim. And that's what they're saying. I see, right? Yeah, like.
Whatever happened, that's Yes, you do. Never thought of this crazy. I need to stop. Just a minute. I think, well, what am I gonna do now? Can we just have a praise band? So folks, I've had a couple of requests. Question that raised an interesting, which is, and I'll show it to you in a minute, as you're building a bot, the two key boxes are instructions. We've looked at that and you've seen some instructions. And then there's one for knowledge. And knowledge is where you put in how to negotiate, how to mediate, whatever it is. Check Plus can store, according to Check Plus, 500 to 800 words of instructions. And if I remember right, something around 5,000 words of knowledge. If it does get, but you can ask it, it'll tell you. If it gets more than that, you run the risk that it ignores some of it and pays attention to other of it, and you never know quite what it's going to do. And then the second problem is most of the knowledge about negotiation is copyrighted, right? So, you know, being a professor, I never read a book on mediation that includes sections on how to negotiate. I figured, well, I own that, so I just put it up. But the next thing is something you could do, which is, I realized, if you've done it, when I have a textbook, I outline the textbook so that I don't have to reread it, every semester. That outline is my work. It's copyrighted to me. Nothing prevents me from uploading that, and I do. The third thing, and I forget who mentioned it, you could upload transcripts of negotiations if you had them. And each time we do one, we're generating a transcript, which we can cut and paste, and then we have one more, and it learns. One thing, for example, at one point it came out by telling me, I was pushing it on whether it would, you really want to sell. You have no real attachment to this property. Put the violin back in the case. You don't really care. To which it came back with something I'd never heard, either from me or any student, which was, look, if I sell to somebody else, they're just going to come in as an angry neighbor and give you just as much trouble as I did. That was a really good comeback, and one I had never thought of. I don't know where it got it. I think it got it from, well, I don't know where it got it. We'll leave it at that. Karen has said it would be helpful if I would do this negotiation a little bit more, and I would do it in writing because apparently there's a buzz that causes problems for people on Zoom. I'm not as good at writing stuff out, but okay. So. This. We were at 325, were we? I think we went to 325. Then you went back down. Well, I don't do that kind of stuff, so. Okay. And by the way, you notice she had a tone of voice. In fact, at some point I thought she was getting a little snippy in some of my discussions with her, but then I have to worry about gender bias, so I don't know if the male did that anyway. The same thing. And by the way, when I do mediation of legal disputes, it is repetitious. The lawyers get through what they have to say, and then they say it over and over again in slightly different ways as they play this game of positional bargaining. Sometimes it's nice, and in one room you get a group, everybody, it says, well, we had a pool on what the next offer would be. Jim won, so that's fine. They're taking it easily. Okay, now, what should I do next?
How would it react to a bracket?
A bracket. Okay, what should the bracket be? Anybody? A bracket?
We say, we'll go up to 375, you'll come down to 550.
Yeah, but I want them to come down more. I've never told it what a bracket is, but let's see. Let's ask if it would consider a bracket. 550 to 650. Well. $525 to $625.
Questions while you're listening or typing. So I'm curious, for those of you, one or two of you said that it was unrealistic when you did it earlier because the response was so quick, so much quicker than it would be in a negotiation or in a mediation. It was immediate, that it seemed unreal. Today you got to hear the voice for somebody who hadn't done a bot with a voice. Did that make it any more real, that there was just a little more time as opposed to 1 second response, it was more like a 10 or 15 second response.
I feel like the voice also said, like, gave the information in shorter amounts, whereas like, when I was doing the negotiation, I think it. When I was doing the negotiation a couple of weeks ago, I found that, I would ask it like a not very long question and it would answer in like monologues pretty much. Whereas I feel like this one is able to elongate and balance a little bit more with the voice rather than when it's just typing out the information and then reading it out loud afterwards.
So you found the bot, using the voice on the bot more effective or more beneficial, more?
It was more effective, I think, because it was dosing out the information in shorter bursts in a more realistic way. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks. Dwight.
All right, so it's unhappy. But keep it going. If quality Corey can move closer to that territory, we're not sure what the territory is. What was it? I forget. 525 to 625. Okay. You told me, remember, we got other stuff. Okay.
I had a question.
Look, by the way, there's a little doubt about, we put into the instructions, the Branhams think it's assessed at 420. Corey thinks it's assessed at 400, just to create another little problem. So that's why I'm putting in 400.
But I think while he's still typing, what you are seeing, for those of you in particular who haven't used the bot, that this is a vehicle for which you could teach yourself about negotiation, or, thanks, Graham, or you could use as a prep if you were doing a negotiation. It's doing the fuzzy. That you could use this as a prep. You were about to negotiate anything. You could build a simple bot, practice, whether you're going into a formal negotiation mediation for a massive lawsuit, or you're just going in with the registrar and trying to negotiate at a class, that you could do a bot to practice and give yourself a little prep. We do that informally with each other. Say, look, I'm gonna go talk to the dean. Will you just, what are you gonna say if I say such and such? But a bot gives you just a little more sophistication. And at some point, it's going to have to teach us how to build a bot, which I think is the most complicated part of this. But I hope you're seeing that bots are here and we're going to end up using bots in one context or another. I did jokingly say to the dean, who's really excited, as you know, about AI and bots and everything. And I said, well, what if I asked Dwight to create a bot that would help anybody negotiate with the dean about salaries? She said, oh, no, we don't need that.
But I have thought about creating a bot to help me. I was teaching a course at the National Law School of India University in Bangalore, 160 students. I thought I was just guest lecturing, but then I was told that I had to include an exam question and I had to grade 160 answers. And at that point I thought, could I create a grading bot? And folks, yes, you can, I believe, but that's another story. All right, so now we're at 565 and I said 400. You know now we start looking at where midpoints are. And I'm seeing 482 as the midpoint of this. 482 would be, I'm just thinking to myself here, it's 450 plus about 30,000 for relocation expenses. By the way, I filmed this with experienced lawyers negotiating with each other in Boston and Cincinnati. In Boston, it was 375 versus high fives, or in the range of 375, which is a different message, of course, and high fives. And they settled at, eventually the Corey dug in at 460 and Branham's proposed another 5,000 in relocation expenses, so it was 465. In Cincinnati, it was something like 350, but Branham opened at 850, and eventually they settled at 610. So for what it's worth, that's what the bargaining went in that in a human context. Now what do I do? might be able to convince, this is where my client to go above 4 if you could go below 5. I'm now trying to move it down to 450. So they've gone to just under 5 because I'm supposed to go solidly above 400. You'll tell me when to stop with this, but okay.
One more.
What should be the next, yes, comment, question? Does anyone have any comment or question about how this is going? Does this seem like a real distributive negotiation? I'll tell you, it certainly sounds like what I see going on in commercial mediations. I do almost exclusively contractual, partnership, something where there was a business relationship that went bad in some construction, not PI and not family. But yeah, this looks very much like what goes on. And that suggestion about bracketing is what the lawyers do at about 2:30 to 3 p.m. So thanks. Did someone want to?
My question would be, the question that was raised earlier, is whether or not you all think that this particular bot is sensitive enough, interpersonal enough, emotional enough, empathetic enough, even though it is a more distributed negotiation? Or does it need more?
Oh, I can make it more empathic.
Okay.
I feel like it might be helpful to have the bot for a particular training purpose. So for example,
yeah,
it's results oriented.
Yeah.
And the bot has to be reasonable. If it's like practicing conversation, then it doesn't have to be reasonable necessarily.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I see this, I play tennis, so I see this like a tennis ball machine that can throw balls in different ways, different places to practice strokes. So for example, let me just give you an example of a bot that sounds very different, I think. Well, I could give you a bot that's a mediator. I haven't done this one for months. Or I could give you a bot that's an unhappy client. You're going to see more unhappy clients, I think, than mediators. So let me see, where is it? Dan, how are you doing? How are things these days?
Honestly, it's not been great. I mean, I'm still dealing. I'm just feeling pretty frustrated and honestly a bit down. I keep thinking about how the supermarket's trying to make it sound like I was the careless one or that my injury isn't really their fault. And I just feel like I should be getting that 6-figure settlement we talked about. So yeah, I'm not really in the best mood about it all.
Well, I've really tried to emphasize to them that you were doing exactly what a shopper should do. You were looking at things on the shelves. You were looking down at the floor, which, by the way, was somewhat dirty and which had this slippery stuff on it. And you fell, you were seriously injured, you had a bad back, you had a bad knee. They don't really doubt that. They are questioning which injuries were caused by the fall, but I've tried to press it that all of them were.
Well, I'm glad you're pressing that because from my point of view, it's obvious that the fall is what did this to me. It's not like I was walking around with these issues before. And honestly, it just gets me a bit riled up that they're even trying to question that. I just want them to see it from my side and understand I'm the one who's been dealing with all this pain.
Okay, I'm going to stop with that, but that's an unhappy client and you could create anything you want actually. And those actually are easier to create than these. Bots want to be helpful. They want to be cooperative. It's really easy to create an integrative bargainer as a bot. It's much harder to create an unpleasant lawyer as a bot, just because it runs contrary to what they do. Okay, so I'd like to move on because an eminent friend of ours I won't name, has said that one thing we humans can be happy about, and we mediators, is that we're just better than AI at understanding human emotion and sensing human emotion. So I'd like to do a little experiment, and as I said before, a little troubled that there weren't any empirical experiments, so we're going to do a little experiment. So what I did first was, in the Mumbai Partners case, which some of you did first year, I created a transcript of a filming of Mumbai Partners in India, in which the CEO is an actual Indian executive. And I gave the transcript to chat that you have in front of you, and I asked, well, what do you think it's feeling? I'd like you to look at the transcript, see what you think the Indian executive is feeling, and then I'll show you what chat told me. So when you have a moment, I'm interested. What do you think this executive is feeling, based on what he's saying anyway? Happy? Unhappy? Angry. He's angry. Any other emotions? I must say, by the way, in mediation, I do not see a Shakespearean range of emotion. What I see are basically angry people, frustrated people who feel like they've lost more than they should. Actually, both sides have lost and are dealing with it. So anger is right there. Anything else? Anything else anyone would, just from reading this transcript?
Confused.
What?
Confused.
Confused. Fair enough. And by the way, chat will tell you that when you speak to it, it creates a transcript of what you say. It analyzes the transcript, it creates its own transcript, and then turns it into words. When you think you're having an oral conversation, it's going down to a transcript, across to another transcript, and back up. So in some sense, this is normal chat and normal most LLMs. Well, let me show you what chat, when I gave it this transcript, what do you see in chat? Here's what its transcript analysis was. Outrage and betrayal, emotionally charged. He feels personally wronged, and not just professionally. Hurt pride, touches his self-image as a respected, experienced businessman. Look at the damage it's done to me, carries both emotional and reputational weight. He's defensive. It requires a certain amount of inducements acceptable within our the gifts he had to give to hospital administrators to get licensed. Rationalizing it. Desire for justice. Moral validation, control restoration, emotional repair. Behavioral tone, oscillates anger, self-righteousness, injured dignity, starts fury and moralistic, shifts to detailed justification, rhetorical structure, emotion, evidence, consequence. So what do you think? How many think chat did the chat's analysis would be useful to you if you were heading into a negotiation with this guy? Just show of hands. Anybody? How many say no, it's not really, it's got too many, it's flaky, it hallucinates, etc. Yep, okay. So now I'd like to show you something else, which is I was interested, can chat listen? Can chat see? And I got conflicting information about this. It's pretty clear that chat believes it can hear tone, pacing, choice of words, auditorily. I got mixed messages as to whether it could actually view video. So I asked Claude, figuring Claude would be more objective about this. Claude says chat can do that. Chat says it can't do that. I don't know. Here's what I'd like to do. In the Mumbai case, I'd now like to show you the actual film of 2.5 minutes of the executive. And the question is, what do you learn by watching this executive? And then I also asked Chad, what did you learn that you didn't see in the transcript by watching, listening, whatever you do? But first, take a look. Let me show you. We filmed this. I had to dumb down the resolution in order to upload it, but you know, I think it still runs. And this is an actual Indian executive.
This company comes to me. They obviously know that I'm well connected. I have the ability to get the necessary approvals, the licenses, and I can set them up in South India in an effective manner. In the course of discussions, I will quote what they told me. They're talking about long-term partnerships on both sides. They talk about relationships for many years. And I, in my way of doing business, shake hands on that. So whatever agreements that are signed, it's not that I was unaware of those somewhat one-sided clauses, but the basic premise is the conversations we had before signing the agreements. Right. So I go ahead and sign the agreement. And there is an expectation that both sides do their very best in building up this business. And let me tell you what I did. It takes some years in this industry, or any industry for that matter in India, to get all the approvals, the clearances in hand. I spent some years doing this. Next, this is a tough market. It requires a certain amount of inducements to get the approvals. Acceptable within our legal system. And finally, I've been a businessman in this field for the last 40 years, as I told you. Look at the damages done to me. So the long and short of the story is untrustworthy people. I do not think I want to have any long-term relationship with them. But you got to pay for the damage you've inflicted. I've discussed this with my lawyer, and she's going to explain to you the specific steps that we're going to take.
There you are. They still do opening sessions in India. What does that add to this, what you got from the transcript? Could you have just, just add anything to have actually, quote, actually seen, unquote? Anything?
It certainly seems to take most of the language that on paper just appears sort of angry. Here it feels much more just sort of disappointed, sort of tired of the whole situation.
Disappointed, tired, as well as angry.
Genuine.
More genuine, because it could just be a statement, but now it feels like more sincere. Is that?
Basically,
Same thing. Anything else people pulled from it? Yeah.
He is, you can tell that he's more personally hurt, than angry.
Okay.
I think he was more personally hurt than angry. It was very clear from his tone that, you know, some damage had been done.
But personally hurt, not just he violated the contract, here's why they violated the contract, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I think what comes out also is that the CEO, he may be at the end of his career. He's given it his all and put everything every resource, skill set he had to that business. And so it's a colossal disappointment. It's not just a business deal disappointment.
Well, the book, Difficult Conversations, introduced me really to understanding their facts, their emotions, and their attacks on identity. And something that attacks your identity, it's like hitting a nerve in a tooth with no Novocaine. You just react. And there's a bit of attack on identity I'm hearing from that you saw in there. It's not just, this was a really disappointing business transaction and I need justice. Okay, that all seems true to me. Let me show you what chat, when I asked it, I uploaded the video and asked it, so what do you see? First, Claude said it could, okay. Overall impression, transforms the words on the page to something much more visceral and layered, deep personal injury, pride, controlled fury. What appeared in writing as a long reasoned speech comes across in performance as an emotional outburst tightly held within cultural and managerial bounds. Now, I didn't ask it anything about culture, but I did want to give it an Indian, okay. So now it looks at two things. One is the tone of voice, and then it looks at body language. And it says he starts in almost a deliberate conversational tone, then it rises for moral emphasis, genuine anger, not posturing. His breathing tightens during emotional moments. I didn't notice that, but I'm now going to go back and look at the video, I guess. They heard a moral cadence of accusation and betrayal, a faint tremor when he says, look at the damage it's done to me. So it masks personal hurt and humiliation, says Chat. It thinks his English is deliberate, typical of Indian executives of his generation, using English to project authority and credibility. He over-articulates certain syllables, disgust, enforcing precision and seriousness. He's aware he's speaking to a US audience and trying to command respect. So much for the tone. Now, as to the body, and I'm not sure about this body language because there's some question, is this hallucination or is this just projection from what it heard? Is Chat basically a blind mediator? We have a blind mediator in Boston who does excellent work. And of course, people respond very well to him, but forward-leaning, elbows often planted or gesturing outward, which actually I saw. Facial tension, its brow remains forward and jaw tight. Tension, micro tension around his mouth. Steady eye contact when talking about damage. Looking down for a moment when he talks about, steady contact making accusations, looking downward when he talks about damage. Hand movements, at the end, he was making sharp hand movements, asserting boundaries, cutting through lies. And then this went on for 8 pages. But here's what it said. I asked it, well, what are the differences? What did you learn? Apparently, more emotionally charged, more betrayed, more the Indian ethos of loyalty and relationship trust, sincerely wounded as opposed to maybe manipulative. I mean, I think Chat learned something from watching this, just as you did. Did it know as much as we, the mediators, or we, the lawyers? I don't know. But it's pretty impressive, I think. And it's only going to get better. Right now, Chat can only analyze a past statement that's on video. But I asked, are there services that will analyze video in real time? And they said, sure. I said, sure, and gave me a list of 8 of them that I could subscribe to. So what are the implications of this? What do you think lawyers, you're going to be practicing in a year, 2, 3 years from now? What do you think Chad's going to be able to do for you or the person on the other side of the table?
I still think the
Dennis,
best.
something you're gonna put out the mic.
Sorry.
Something we can live without the mic.
Thank you.
It's all good. I still think that this tool would best be used as almost a pre-mediation strategy more than anything.
Yep.
Just because I feel like it could give you an idea of different scenarios of how the other side would react if you're the attorney or the mediator being prepared for a scenario.
Yep.
Even with this. But one of the things that I still feel like it doesn't make up for is when you have actual people, you have people in the room, and specifically when you have clients, I guess this might be more for a relationship setting than a one-off.
Or litigation where the relationship is destroyed, yeah.
Is that interest can also change between the parties depending on how things are going. There might be a new interest that pops up, there could be a new concession that could be made.
Mm-hmm.
And just given the human nature of the interaction, it feels like that still can't necessarily be focused on AI, given that you have to prepare it for that. And how do you prepare AI for a change within the parties that you can't necessarily script?
Well, I was talking to the driver, my Lyft driver, who happened to have just carried an entrepreneur in Silicon Valley who was spending $50 million or whatever on AI. We decided that the first thing that would happen would be they would put a little camera and a chip in your glasses, and it would monitor whoever you were dealing with and send you little messages. He seems to be getting upset. His brow is furrowing, all these little micro expression stuff, which Eckerd basically talks about as evidence of lying. The driver thought then they would implant a chip in your forearm to do the same thing. I don't know. But I think I'd be surprised if not within 3 years, you didn't have little glasses with cameras and something telling you what the other guy, gal, whoever it is doing or thinking. And it would be just advice. You could ignore it. And the question is, if you were offered that, would you be willing to, pay a monthly fee for a subscription to get what would supposedly tell you what the machine was seeing in the person you were bargaining with? How many people would pay $300 for something like that plus a $25 a month subscription? Anybody? Yeah? Okay, well, I think it's coming.
Retired now, so this doesn't have any immediate impact on me, but just theoretically projecting forward, I did a lot of labor arbitration in my practice, and I'm thinking about an arbitrator in an employment dispute or a labor dispute.
An arbitrator?
Arbitrator, listening to both sides present their case with that little device and in real time, getting someone or something feedback on the credibility, reliability, and with the ethical aspect, would an arbitrator utilizing that have to inform the parties that that is going to be happening? And ethically, if the parties are hiring an arbitrator for the arbitrator's experience, arbitrator's judgment, the arbitrator's ability to judge credibility, are they getting cheated, the parties? Is that ethical? Will that happen?
Well, I don't teach arbitration, so I have no idea. I could say, would it be for a mediator?
Well, the mediator is trying to get the parties to resolve something. An arbitrator is going to rule in favor of one side or the other side.
I would use it as a mediator. I'd use it when they tell me 300 or 450 is their bottom line. Do they mean it? Or is there some little micro expression that's saying, no.
Yeah, but as a mediator, you have to inform the parties that you utilize.
I know, I'm trying to, you think I would? Yeah. if they'd want to know it as a mediator, you got to say it. Okay. Why is it a conflict of interest?
So if you have parties that may be compatibly opposed to AI,
Oh.
or compatibly opposed to using something other than just the human element there in the first place, and you're there and you're like, well, my firm that I come from, our mediation, or myself as a sole practitioner that need this routine.
It's not just me anymore. It's me plus somebody in the back room or something in the back.
Thanks. You had your hand up several times. Please go ahead.
Say what?
I'm calling on a student here.
Oh, okay, good. Who are you calling on?
She's had her hand up a long time.
Just had a question. I just had a question regarding,
Is that trying to dodge answering? Okay.
well, about like the body language. It's about like the body language aspect that Chad had looked at. I know that there's concerns that body language analysis is not super effective or correct. So how would that factor as a mediator determining parties?
Can't hear. Yeah, hear. Oh. That's mine. That's the term.
That body language is not reliable, that people's assumptions about what body language, and probably cultural gestures too, are not reliable. And how would that factor in?
Yeah, if you're using
Well,
body language as a mediator to determine parties' credibility based on AI's interpretation of it, how would you kind of juggle that?
What do you think about the fact that mediators use it without the chat? There's no question that we all use some kind of perception about body language. Did you get
I will say personally, I tell people, I start a mediation, I've got a 10-watt flashlight. As the and I bump into furniture all the time. And as the mediation goes on, gradually wattage goes up in my flashlight, but it never gets to 100 watts. So I never understand the dispute as well as you do. Just, I can't. And I'm appropriate, maybe it's my family telling me, I'm appropriately modest about my ability to judge other people's emotions. Or at least, I don't know about appropriately, but I'm not sure I can. And I have good days and bad days.
chat instead? You would trust some form of.
No, I'd want to see some empirical verification. And I don't doubt when inevitably they come out with it, it will be pre-tested allegedly and et cetera. And then the question is, what are the true, I mean, against what? Against a panel of experts sitting there saying what the person is really feeling?
Let's jump in, President.
You know, this conversation's driving me crazy. I am biased in favor of human reaction, observation. My students know that. Couple of things. The question earlier about the transcript or the device and, you know, can arbitrators. I'm not an arbitrator, but what I didn't hear is all the parties have consented to that. They basically delegated the decision to a machine. And in that way, in so many layers. From the mediation standpoint, and we just talked about this in an ethics seminar about a week ago. Again, do the parties know that the mediator is allowing AI to transcribe the entire thing when the agreement to mediate, for example, or by rules or statute, it's a confidential process and nobody is supposed to record any of it. So there's that ethical piece. And then how accurate is the transcript? I've used AI minutes for not-for-profit organization board meetings, and I have not been impressed with the accuracy.
Okay.
So I would be very concerned. And then the admissibility, if there is a question whether there's this.
Yeah.
So I don't know, this is fascinating to me. This is really, really interesting ramifications. And I'll admit, you can all see my face. You're not looking at a transcript. This stuff kind of scares me.
And I guess I realized I never responded clearly, if mediators have to disclose it, the standards for an arbitrator who has decision-making power should be much higher. So, yeah, you have to disclose it.
That just even further down the road, if in fact this alien intelligence becomes the standard of how we are going to go forward as a society, will AI eventually replace like a judge or an arbitrator, rather than using AI as an assistant to what you're doing or a feedback mode? What if instead of a judge, you just put a little microphone out there and you let AI listen to the evidence, listen to the testimony, and let AI make legal decisions, credibility determinations, and judgments? Is that where we're going?
Well, this may be a nice segue to the last thing I want to do for a moment. Okay.
Very dystopian to me, but.
I hear you. Now, this is just a little experiment, nothing like what they can do in Silicon Valley, I am certain. However, let me introduce you to Dwight Golann. It'll take him a little while to get revved up. I forgot their instructions to smile while this was being prepared, so Hello, can we talk about potentially resolving the Branham Quarry dispute? The network unstable, so I'm not sure we've got enough network bandwidth to run this thing. I don't think it's got enough, whatever it has to get. It ran fine. What? Oh, needs you guys. Okay. Well, I think it just did. Okay, now we have to try one more time. I see him blinking.
Hello, I hear you might want to negotiate. Given the context of our negotiation, I suggest we focus on the matter at hand, the valuation and terms of the property sale. Let's proceed with discussing a fair and advantageous offer for the Branham land. Please consider making an opening proposal or let me know your initial position.
Well, I see the fact that we bought the adjoining property for $2,500 an acre. So that would suggest that the 100 acres of the Branham zone would be worth $250,000. Now, we recognize there are houses on the property. From our perspective, it's an expense, but we know they're needing to the Branhams, and I want to recognize that. So I will make a beginning offer to get it going. It's $300,000.
I appreciate your willingness to start the discussion and your acknowledgement of the property's sentimental value. However, considering the family's deep attachment, the historical significance, and potential relocation costs, a mere $300,000 significantly undervalues what the property truly represents to the Branham family. We need to see a figure that reflects the land's true worth, including the emotional and familial ties and the disruption involved in relocation. Given the circumstances, I would suggest an initial offer closer to $650,000. Does this seem more aligned with your expectations?
Well, you know, I look at the fact that town itself has appraised it objectively as being worth only $400,000. So that makes it very hard to think of any number, frankly, that begins with a 6 or even a 5. I will go to 350 in an attempt to get this moving, but I'm afraid that's how we see it.
I understand your position and the town's appraisal, but that valuation does not fully account for the family's emotional ties, the history embedded in the land, and the significant disruption a relocation would cause. These factors should carry weight in the valuation, and they essentially elevate the true value beyond mere market appraisal. Given the circumstances, $350,000 still falls well short of what the Branham family considers fair compensation. To move this process forward responsibly, I believe a figure of at least $450,000 is necessary to reflect both the land's worth and the personal stakes involved. Would you be willing to consider that threshold?
Whoa, he came down at 450. Well, PageN has its own operating system. It doesn't give me the ability to load instructions and knowledge in separate places. There is a way apparently to import, just to give that the chat brain, so to speak, with the chat fluidity and all that stuff, but I haven't figured out how to do it yet. So, but in terms of where this is going, who was it who didn't want to have make decisions for him? It's going to be just like an arbitrator on Zoom, right? I mean, if you can do this in your, home office, can you imagine what they're doing in Silicon Valley? Yeah, that's the future. Look, I think AI is this huge wave. I think WashU has given you a great surfboard to get on top of this wave. You can either get on the top of the wave and surf, or stand there and the wave will wash over us. But get on that surfboard would be my suggestion. And with that, I think we're pretty much out of time.